Welcome to SME's AM Influencer Series, dedicated to the passionate professionals who volunteer with SME to connect the digital thread of additive manufacturing within traditional manufacturing. My name is Adam Penna, your host, leading customer engagement for our SME additive manufacturing community. Our guest today is Paul Bates, additive manufacturing lead project engineer at ASTM International. For more than a century, ASTM has been well known as one of the world's largest and most established standards creating organizations. Today, ASTM also offers a wide range of products and services that go well beyond standards: training, proficiency testing, certification, and the new portal service Compass. These offerings significantly enhance the benefits ASTM provides to its stakeholders worldwide. Paul has also worked advancing additive manufacturing at Underwriters Laboratories, that's UL, and Reebok for many years. He has SME affiliation with SME's AM certification process partner. Also, he is the AMUG past president. Paul, welcome.
Thanks, Adam.
Great to have you here. It's good to be talking about this. SME has been looking to get the message out there more inside of manufacturing, what additive has been doing in the community. We're here to talk a little bit more about that today. And I know we all started somewhere and heard a little bit about your history there, but it's interesting when we get to our first experience with additive manufacturing. So what was your first additive manufacturing experience?
Well, my first one was at Reebok. I'd been a machinist for a long time and mold maker for many years, and we needed a new way to craft samples. In those days, if you needed a sample midsole or outsole, one of the factories would craft something together out of wood or body filler or foam and then ship it to you. And in 30 days, you'd have a sample. And you say, boy, that is not what I want. Boy, I wish I had a different sample. Or I wish I could make a change to it. But 30 days has gone by already. So it was a pretty big challenge. So we looked at machining them. And you can certainly machine these prototypes over time, but they're very complicated organic shapes, very difficult to machine easily and quickly. So I was doing some research, through some trade journals, and I came across additive manufacturing, or in that case, rapid prototyping. And there was a couple different technologies available at the time. There was vat polymerization, which is SLA. And there was, powder bed fusion with polymers, which was it was at the DTM process, SLS. And then there was also FDM or material extrusion that was available in those days. And there's a few other esoteric things out there. There was some LOM, which is laminate object manufacturing, that was available too in paper form, which was interesting. But we wanted something that was pretty robust, and the materials were relatively safe to work with. Some of those technologies are safer materials than others. We needed a level of speed and durability too, simply because we may be shipping these prototypes around the world. It needed to be strong enough to handle that. So we chose to get into SLS. And my first experience was going down to DTM and seeing what they were doing at that time. And it was pretty remarkable because at that time they were still offering sand as well as metal. And certainly their main product was the polymers. And they'd just gotten into nylon 12. Which was a recent launch for them, and it was really such a great material to work with. We hit the timing just right.
Yeah, that's an interesting time there, and that's obviously with DTM, the later part of 3D Systems there, and that whole ride there. Seeing that at that early time, what did that look like? What did the atmosphere look like when you were bringing in your prototyping application to them?
Well, I think the biggest challenge for us was CAD. This is more than 20 years ago, and CAD today is. You can jump on the internet and get a web browser and start drawing things up in 3D.
Yeah, it's in the
Whereas that time period, there was very few software programs that really created really good 3D models. You could do some with some surface modeling and wireframe and get close, but they weren't really clean models. They had gaps in them and things that really made it difficult to use additive manufacturing and rapid prototyping for. And they ran on like Unix computers, which just was before Windows NT really became launched. For those who want to look back that far, this was many iterations of Windows when it was just a mouse was kind of new to the game for the Windows side, the Microsoft side of things. So it was a pretty big challenge to get the CAD going and to work with the various formats and conversions to finally get to something that we could print.
Yeah, transferring the file types back and forth. I actually worked, my first computer was for the CAD side of it, was a Unix Spark Station. So
nice.
Yeah. So I do remember that separation before NT and how we dealt with all those large files. Yeah, that was really where I started digging, was on the CAD side and getting involved with CATIA and Unigraphic. Yeah, it's really neat to see all the different things that CAD is progressed inside of the manufacturing world, but specifically for additive, there's some different ways to approach a file now that you couldn't even start to think of to do 20 years ago. So great things happening in the software side. That's interesting back then, obviously starting off in the CAD world and then seeing a lot of that progression to where we are now. Nowadays, it's like people that are coming into the industry and they're not quite sure maybe what additive is, or they've seen 3D printing around. What advice would you give to the manufacturers for learning how to implement additive manufacturing?
Well, it's the same advice that I followed more than 20 years ago, is do your research. Determine what your target is, what do you want to make, and really get a business plan. Know what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, what's your return on investment, what's the added value you can bring to your organization. If you've got one problem and you're looking for a solution for that one problem, that's fine. That's what we started with. But we created more solutions through time. And, we did our research. We knew that we were getting a robust system that was going to work well and had quality materials and safe materials. We did the research on safety too. What was it going to take to make sure that, if we had a material spill, could we deal with that? Did we need to call in a third party to do a spill clean every time we spilled something? So we did a lot of that research, and I still recommend now, know what you're going to get for the technology, understand it, and find out if it's going to really be your problem solving approach. In our day, we were looking at rapid prototyping. We just needed to make prototypes. We didn't have to worry about, is it going to be something that's going to be utilized downstream in as a fixture or jig, or if it's going to be used for a production part. But now it's different. If someone's doing that research, as I recommend, also research what is your end solution. Do you need to know it's going to meet the requirements for your industry? And of course, we're spinning to what standards do you need to worry about? Do the research on the standards too. Make sure you understand all of it, and reach out to people that are experts. Reach out to other people in the industry. Find out what they've done. Find out what their mistakes were, what their successes were, and leverage those the best you can. I was able to reach out to people very early in this industry, and they were always a phone call away, and I leveraged them as much as I possibly could. And the good news is they're still friends to this day, and we still talk about the new ways that we can leverage the technology.
Yeah, it's very important to have those people to lean on. And I know I talk to a lot of service providers out there, and that's a big part of that journey is getting that information back from someone who's been there. And it's a large part of also the manufacturing community to share that information. And if you have the right contacts and you look, you could find that out there. But additive, as it's growing, there's so many things that are changing. You need to have that network of people you talk to, because you can go down a rabbit hole, and you often do, without being able to communicate with other people in network and see what's going on, so you get the best ideas moving forward. Always good to have somebody to tap on the shoulder and say, hey man, you've been through this before. How might I do that now?
Yeah, the great thing about the network is I had to do a lot of searching to find and build a network in the beginning. Later on, obviously, I joined AMUG, and that was a built-in network. For those who are getting into it now, once they've decided to get into the industry and get started, and they start looking for that network, you can plug into a group like the Additive Manufacturing Users Group, and you've got an instant network. You've now got 2,000 people to call and say, hey, I got a problem with this encoder, or my powder isn't flowing properly, or my nozzles are getting clogged too often. What do I do? And there's thousands of people that are doing the same thing you're doing in a general sense and can help you.
Yeah, that is. It's good to have that network to plug into. And yes, you brought up the Additive Manufacturing User Group. It was great to have that as one of the first events coming back from the pandemic this year. Did a wonderful job, and I was happy to attend that. So great job again putting that together this year, and look forward to many more AMUGs. It's always a great time to network and actually reach out and see the people that you'd like to talk to that you can't see in a normal day.
Exactly.
So yeah, good stuff. We do have a lot coming up this year also with SME's RAPID TCT event in September. What has your experience been with that SME event?
Well, I like the SME event because it is a different event than AMUG, for example. Whereas AMUG is users of the technology, experienced users, and that networking opportunity. SME is really more of a broader scope of not only attendees, but what experiences you're going to get there. And particularly people that are new and want to learn about the technology before making that big investment. That's a great event to visit and to ask those questions. And you've got such a range of exhibitors and attendees. You can meet and greet a ton of people pretty quickly and get some of those initial questions answered from real experts, which is great.
Yeah, well, it's been interesting seeing the technology change over the years. You can see a lot of that there, on the trade show floor, the different companies that bring things that you haven't even seen or maybe not heard of yet, but of course, things that you've been looking into that you can get a little deeper dive, talking with engineers and talking to people that actually are using the equipment. So it's a great place for all that. Looking forward to that this year. And so what are some of the things that you're looking forward to this year at RAPID TCT?
I'm looking forward just to, again, making another connection face to face with folks and make some direct conversations with some of the suppliers and OEMs that I'm familiar with. I've been in this industry long enough that a lot of this is rekindling friendships, spending time with people I haven't seen, but also meeting with my own team a bit more because of COVID and because of working remotely. Like a lot of the other folks here, they're listening in. We've been working from home. We haven't been in the office. We haven't been out on the road. So there's a lot of people that I haven't met, including some of my own team members I haven't had much chance to spend time with yet. So I'm looking forward to all those things. But it's really going to be the face-to-face activities, as well as certainly some of the presentations and some of the information I'm going to be able to glean from it as well.
Yep. Yeah, that's another good year to do that, and it's happy to come back from the pandemic, like you're talking about. A lot of these teams, even when it's under normal times, normal situations, normal year, you don't get together sometimes as a team, and you get to see all of those people that enjoy that and get to see each other and work together all year, but maybe haven't spent time together yet. So that's another part of it I hadn't thought about, but it is a nice benefit to be able to bring a team together and do things in one place and get that kind of feedback and also have a little bit of a team building experience while you're there. It's
absolutely. I think we're all going to get that as we start getting these events, whether or not we've gone back to our offices or not yet, but just another team building opportunity. I do recommend, though, at any of these events, don't stick with your team all the time. Spread out. Go interact with other folks and grab lunch with somebody you don't know. Maybe that's always been. I mean, it's an AMUG tradition, but I do it the same thing at all events I go to. Is have lunch with somebody I haven't met before. See somebody sitting at the table and sit with them and have your little packaged box lunch and hang out together for a little while. You're only going to make friends.
Yeah, it's important to network and get outside of your normal bubble too, and it's a great place to take advantage while you're there. A lot of these events have that opportunity. Some people just stick in their own bubble. I am guilty of that in the past. I realized that over this last year that being able to mingle and get out there and actually talk to multiple people besides my own little bubble makes all the difference. I encourage people to get out there and do that. And if you need somebody to talk to, go ahead and tap on my shoulder. I'll be happy to talk to you also while you're there.
There you go.
Great event to do that. But yeah, so, we talked about manufacturing as a whole, and we're talking about how additive plays into the whole industry. So what do you think is the impact that additive manufacturing has had to the broad industry of manufacturing as a whole?
Well, I think look at the way that it's become distributed, right? A few years ago in conversation, talking to some folks, and they're like, well, who's using additive? And it's like, well, ask around. I will assure you that pretty much every manufacturer either has it or is looking to adopt it. And it may not be their key manufacturing process. If it's an injection molding shop, they may not get additive to replace it because it shouldn't replace it. But they're going to get it as to support their customers, whether it's prototyping or tooling and fixturing, a lot of different impacts. And I think what it's become is that one more tool in the toolbox, or that possibility of expanding your customer base by providing something new and different is extraordinary. And I think it's really covering across all the manufacturing processes. I mean, just when you think, well, one thing it's never going to affect is construction, guess what?
Yeah,
it's affected construction in a significant way. So I think that, my opinion is that it's everywhere, and it's working hard to get even more places. And it's something that you should embrace, even if it's challenging and maybe even a little scary. Step up and embrace it anyway. It'll make your business better in the long run.
Yeah, and there's great people that can mitigate that risk going into it. I know working with you in the past when you were at UL, Underwriters Laboratory, there's a lot you did to prepare a company for their installation of a machine that they didn't think about, and so it's important to actually have that as a reference or resource when you're going into something like that. And obviously the industry does supply that. So it's been getting better over the years, especially with people like you working on it. So always comfortable to have a company like that working on more standards. And now you're at ASTM doing that also.
Right.
So how has that been? How has that change been for you over there, and how are things going?
Well, again, as you said, you can still reach out to me with those questions, and we can certainly provide some help and services there. It's been a great transition. I'm really excited to learn more about standards. As much as I thought I knew, I did not know as much as I thought, and certainly I probably didn't know as much as a lot of people. But I'm learning a great deal. The team is exciting and interesting and really talented, and we have a lot of fun, even though we haven't been in the same office too often yet. We're certainly having fun, and it is, as we're coming out of COVID, and as industry is really starting to kick again and move forward, we're poised to really be able to support that. not only with some of the services we provide, but also our upcoming event in November, ICAM. We talk about a very interesting event. It's much more scientific and research focused than others, but it is growing exponentially. And I'm just looking so forward to going to that and seeing all the neat stuff that's coming up and coming into the future for additive.
Yeah, what is the general theme of that specific event?
It's actually a pretty broadly based event. It's a get together with, I think it's 25 or 26 symposium of various subjects. We mentioned 3D printed construction and polymers, even cybersecurity. There's a symposium on that. There's some also in just some of the other general, additive things, binder jetting. There's a whole symposium on that, and it's sintering, and it really brings in the folks that are on the leading edge of where we're at in those various topics. When you can come into learning what's the newest of the new when it comes to some of the filled polymers that they're working on now, or in the leaps forward in cybersecurity awareness that's coming up, and some of the tools and processes in place for that. And again, I could go on for a couple hours talking about it with every symposium. I do recommend you go on. You can go on the ICAM website, or just the amcoe.org website, and reach out to me too, and I can direct you to all that. But they're a very interesting event. This will be the first face-to-face one I'll be able to attend, and I'm very excited about it because I know it's going to be just awesome.
Awesome. What were the dates again of that event?
No, it's going to be November 1st to the 5th.
There you go. In Anaheim, it's great to see them opening up, and a lot of great events also happening over there. So looking forward to these live events. Just a lot more networking and a lot more communication gets done there. Don't miss them. That's a lot of great things to look forward to.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too with the live events coming back up that ICAM, for example, does have a virtual option. And I think we're going to start to see more of that opportunity, because a lot of times when you've got an event for not so much ICAM, which is a full week, but some other events that are shorter, to come across the planet for a short event is challenging. And with some of the video tools and things we have nowadays, some of those events, having that virtual option is still a really good choice. I think that's something that we're going to see remaining in these events going forward. Not every event's going to have virtual options, and that's important to understand. But we're seeing those tools coming into play with a lot of events, and it really keeps the door open for some folks that just still can't travel yet, or maybe another year away before they can travel.
Yep, the content is important, so that is a good point to bring up. There's a lot of advancements that happened over the last year, especially when we've had to step up to the plate for having virtual events. So it's great to see those evolving and becoming a part of our normal lives, because there are a lot of things that you can't attend. So it's great to get that content when you can. But yeah, looking forward to that. Again, there's a lot of good things to look forward to now that we're being able to see each other face to face. So looking forward to more events like that. Again, there's a lot of great things happening this year. We're talking about different roles that the organizations play in a lot of the events. What role do you see SME playing in the additive manufacturing space?
Well, I think SME has been in additive for a long time, since the early days. And I think they've always been supportive of what's going on externally, whether it's trainings that are offered by organizations or events. Certainly SME's got its own event with RAPID, which has been a strong event for many years. And that's certainly going to play a role in that. And, SME's training arm, Tooling U, has been around, and it's offered some trainings in there too. And I think that is a good baseline. And then you've got other organizations, including ASTM, which provides more extensive trainings, really would level or stack well on top of those. But I think SME has always been a very strong proponent of additive. With their various subcommittees and other organizations organizing, I think we're going to see SME still being a strong force for many years to come in additive.
Yeah, thank you. There's a lot of great things happening. Of course, the event RAPID TCT is coming up in September, but then again, it's going to be repeating in May of 2022, right? Are we in 20? My gosh, this time is flying by. It's hard to say those years. They seem like they're so out there, but we're right there in the middle of them.
Get some sunshine on us and let the world reopen, I hope.
And socialize and be human beings again. Yeah, because it is about connecting in the community and doing those type of things.
Yeah.
Talking about community, what do you think is the definition of the additive manufacturing community itself?
Well, I think of one word from my own experience, and I'm only going to base things on my own experience, obviously. It's always been very inclusive. Whether you're at an event or in meetings and you're talking with senior management for an OEM or a manufacturer, and you have a question or an opinion on additive, people want to listen. They want to hear about it. They want to share theirs. and there's a lot of information that people share. There's always that balance, and I came across this at Reebok when I was first in the industry. We're using additive. When you interact with a competitor, and you're like, oh, dude, I can't talk about what we're doing. It's like, well, most people are pretty inclusive. They'll talk about the process. They'll talk about techniques they've learned or ways to shorten times and make better parts without giving away what their next product is going to come out in the next product launch. There's that balance of being super inclusive, but also keeping their IP under control. And I think in additive, over any other industry I've been involved in, they've been really on the inclusive side of things more than anything else. You know, people are willing to share things, and it's not always the good things. They're willing to share the bad things too. You know, that this system really caused me some problems, and I really needed to make these kind of changes to make it work for me. Let me share some of the. Let me give you a list of parts to buy, so you can get it to work for yourself. That is a level of inclusiveness I've not experienced anywhere else.
Big time. And I'll have a lot of those conversations about what makes that and what that actually is. It's interesting, I guess the scope of different people that are involved in additive, from the creative side, to the production side. So there's a lot of people pushing it forward and communicating because of that creativity and because of wanting to see something new happen. So you get that excitement of let's figure out a way to make that happen, Right. And that's something that kind of defines what I've seen the community as far as very aggressive of pushing things forward together and looking for it.
Well, I think that's the thing that I've seen a lot too is, I started in it before people really talked about production. And now that's the main point of conversation is how can we use this for production? And that sense of inclusiveness and sharing has only become more and more important. The material choices are still pretty limited. What's available for production that can work in a production environment and meet requirements for products, whether it's aerospace or consumer products, electronics or whatever, there's still a limited space there. And understanding that is still a mystery to a lot of people. And knowing who to reach out to and how to get that information to help you move production faster. What's your quality service system? What kind of system do you have for quality right now? We really haven't thought about that yet. You need to start thinking about it. And you need to start getting information, reaching out to experts in that area to build out your quality system. And, it's becoming real important too for operators. Qualified operators need to be put in place. And how do you validate what a qualified operator is? And how do you know that that's going to meet your requirements next year and year after as you move into production? So it's evolving from a material side, from a process side, and also from an executional side.
Great points there, because it's all part of it. You were kind of leaning towards something I was going to ask you is your advice for the next generation. Obviously, we want to attract people into the industry. The industry is attractive. People find 3D printing, a hot topic. But what would your advice be to attracting the younger generation and keeping them in additive manufacturing?
I think we've got to look at a broader scope, right? Researchers and material development folks and process and creators, those are awesome people. And we have always going to have a need for that. When it comes to engineers and PhDs to get things up and going, we definitely need that. And we need more programs at university level for that. But we also need operators. We need people to get the job done, to work with these cool technologies and these really interesting pieces of equipment and actually make parts. And that by itself is another level, another scope. And that doesn't include on the quality side. So where it seemed like a narrow scope of how do I get into additive, you can only do these 2 or 3 things. The opportunities have expanded exponentially. And there's a lot of new ways to get involved in additive and support the process without being simply, getting a PhD at a university in additive manufacturing. You can have real influence on this from all aspects of the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. Even from the trade school side of it's huge. Getting to learn a trade is a good step into the industry, and that's where I started. Even on the CAD side, I was learning that trade and getting involved in manufacturing from the mechanical engineering side, and then it all leaned towards the career in 3D printing. So yeah, it's just kind of what attracts you. I think what you see as far as your experience out there. Sometimes your first experience might not be the best, but it's the ability to actually gravitate towards what's going to get you more excited to keep moving forward in the industry. There's so many cool sides of what you said, from software to the machines themselves to the trades that come into supporting every side of it. Even from the business side of actually taking care of the operations, we need it all. So
we do.
There's a lot of room for the next generation, and there's a lot to learn from the next generation. So,
it's evolving, right? And the next generation is evolving with it. So what we see and think of additive today versus what I saw 20 years ago is much different. And I think 10 or 20 years in the future, it's going to be very different again. So we look at the next generation, this whole technology is going to be a little bit different than it is now, and maybe more accepted, maybe more advanced. certainly more advanced. And the choices and the way it's going to be used is going to be much different than it was in the past.
It's just a matter of time, right? And I think it's good, learning from also where someone has been as far as someone that's been in the industry, but also learning from the next generation coming up that has new things to add and change. And my daughter had a 3D printer in her first grade class. That's something to me that blows my mind. It wasn't even something that was part of the curriculum until later. So it's cool to just think about what that's going to mean for our whole world as far as what can be done inside of that whole space. It's very interesting to see how 3D printing fits into the whole manufacturing community.
It's great to have that exposure early and get it into the conversation early, so that as young people continue through school, it's not going to be a surprise from later that there's an opportunity there. They're going to know about it right away.
Right.
It's for the whole STEM education as well has really come a long way. Yeah, it's making a big difference.
It is. There's a lot to jump into there. That's for sure. It's been great talking to you, Paul. I know that you always have a lot to share. So thank you very much for doing this. One last question I wanted to ask. We're talking about additive manufacturing as it's been over the last 30 years and kind of things that are happening today. Where do you see AM evolving?
Well, again, I think it's going to evolve in that direction of production. Rapid prototyping and making those first samples is never going to go away, because that hasn't gone away in traditional manufacturing. But when you get into additive, moving toward production, we keep seeing articles, and it isn't just jet engine parts or even medical implants. It's all across the board, where short run products, we see our headlines about our supply chain problems. Additive is going to have a huge influence in all that. So I think what we're going to see is more industry embracing it. We're going to see more products that can be supplemented to production, possibly with additive, maybe not replacing it, but certainly supplementing it, supporting the supply chain in new ways. And I think it's all going to be about getting people aware and introduced to all the aspects of additive, whether it's feedstock and machine operations through quality and even in design. There's a long way to go for us to learn more and make it just a normal part of conversation versus a surprise and something new and whiz bang. It's just going to be part of the manufacturing landscape.
Yeah, as soon as we can press that one button, it happens, right? Without thinking. That's what we're all hoping. Yeah, there's a long way to that. I just had somebody ask me that inside of an open forum. They were like, this new technology for metals, is it just like everything else where I could, press it, just have and make something happen? And I was like, well, depends on how you're actually looking at that. You could say yes, but there is a lot of preparation that goes into it and a lot of stuff that you have to do once it comes out of the printer, depending upon the application. Yeah, I think as far as the applications go and as far as the way we serve our different industries, that's happening,
Yeah.
And that's the exciting part of it, is the outside dream versus the reality of what's really happening might be far from what we thought it would be. But at the same time, that production sensibility is coming into play inside of manufacturing and inside of 3D printing. And it's exciting. There's a lot more to come.
And it's funny too, when people want that one button to make a part concept, it sounds great, but I don't know of any traditional manufacturing that's a one button either, right?
Right.
Casting, I'd love to make I'm going to make a casting for this housing today. Well, I'm just going to push the casting button. There isn't one.
Right.
No injection molding button. There's no machining button.
There is no easy button yet, but
no, none of them are. And the great part is, they all still need education and training when they go for those. And SME's Tooling U has covered those for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And ASTM's had standards for a long, long time in those areas. We're going to continue to do that and expand on it. When it comes to the easy button, I'm hoping everything ends up with an easy button someday. But until that happens, let's get together and learn more how to do it ourselves, and let's keep attending training courses and webinars, and encourage everybody, come on to the ASTM Center of Excellence website anytime and look at the availability of training and webinars and learn more about it, and learn enough that maybe for you, what it takes for you to do it is an easy button.
No, great to have you here, Paul. Is there anything else you'd like to add while we do have you here?
No, I think I've talked and pitched as much as I can. But Adam, it's always a pleasure talking with you. We've known each other for a while, and it's great. And again, whether it's going to be RAPID TCT or any event coming up, certainly ICAM in November, I look forward to seeing everybody face to face in the future. I know it's still a ways away for some folks, but let's stay safe and healthy and work our way toward getting together again as we were in the past.
Yes. Well, Paul Bates, thank you for being a positive leader and a contributing part of the SME additive manufacturing community.
Thank you, Adam.